What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and today we're back with another Friday stream, which we didn't have last week. Sorry about that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. But usually what we do on these streams is talk about something cool, some interesting topic related to GNU Emacs, GNU Geeks, or anything else system crafting related. So I'm glad to be here again to see all of you as well. And let's say hello to the folks who have arrived so far. John, Dershal, JH, Johan, Jonathan, Ashraz, Vladislav. Thanks to everybody for being here so far today. So I've been pretty busy the last, I guess, week. I've been working on some side projects that are related to Flux Harmonic, but sort of also personal significance. So that's why there has not been a video this week, and it's part of the reason why there wasn't a stream last week. Just basically worked myself into the ground into the point where I just needed to catch up on sleep. So I'm still in the process of doing that, but we'll see how it goes. So let me just jump into the updates first. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the fact that System Crafters actually just reached 20,000 subscribers, which is pretty amazing if you ask me. I'm still amazed that even 10,000 people would subscribe to the channel, but 20,000 is pretty awesome from a sort of a number perspective. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who have been watching over the last, or how long has it been now? Year and a half, something? I can't even remember anymore. But you know, it's been a great journey for me so far. I've learned a lot, and I've met a lot of really fun and cool people, and we've built a nice community here. So just wanted to say thank you to all of you who've been a part of it so far. Looking forward to reaching 30K if we can happen to do that at some point. But I'm not going to hold my breath too long, because 20K was well beyond expectations as it goes. Hello to Antonio and Edis. Nice to see you. It also happened to be on my birthday on February 9th, which is kind of cool. So that's another significant milestone there. I'm almost 40, which is kind of crazy. Ashra says he unsubscribes. You can't do that. You're too in now. There's no way you can get out. Another thing worth mentioning today is that it was recently announced that there are fresh Emacs 28 binaries for Windows. So if you use Emacs on Windows and you want to actually use Emacs 28, you can go to one of the links I have here in the show notes. There was an email on Emacs Devel about it, but there's also a alpha.gnu.org folder. If you go to alpha.gnu.org/gnu/emacs/pretest/windows/emacs-28, you'll find the binaries there. So definitely go give those a look if you need to have, or if you want to have the new Emacs, like an official alpha build of Emacs 28. Probably if they're putting out an Emacs build for Windows for testing, then they're feeling pretty good about it. That's my assumption. I haven't actually read that post, so maybe he says that or doesn't say it. But the point is that give it a try, see how it goes, file issues if you run into any problems with it, and hopefully we'll soon see an actual Emacs 28 final release. Who knows if that's going to happen. Hello to Jafer and to Thokal. Thank you. So part of the reason why I've been so busy recently is that I kind of got bit by the compiler bug once again, and I've been working on the Mesh compiler. I don't know if you remember, if you've been around since middle of last year, but I was working on a compiler called Mesh, which is actually meant to compile a scheme-like language down to native code to have a kind of a high-performance Lisp implementation. But recently I started reading this really excellent book called Crafting Interpreters, which sounds pretty appropriate for this channel. And the author, Robert Nystrom, goes through the process of building up an interpreter for a toy language from scratch, and does it in C, and tells you how to build a bytecode VM interpreter. And I find that very interesting. So I've been going through that in my free time, and it's basically eaten up all my free time lately. And I've been losing sleep over it because I'm having so much fun. But I've been working on the mesh language that I talked about last year. I've got some plans for that. They definitely have a lot to do with what I'm doing on Flux Harmonic. So if you're interested in seeing more about that, I'll be talking about it next week on the Flux Harmonic channel. I probably should put a link to that. Whoops. A link to that in here. Let's see. YouTube Flux Harmonic. Yes, youtube.com/Flux Harmonic Live. So subscribe to that channel if you want to see more about that project as it goes. I'll probably talk about it here as well at some point, but you probably don't want to hear me prattling on about compiler implementations on this channel very often. If you do, that's great. I'll do it more, but I'm sure that most of you are more interested in system crafting rather than compiler crafting. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably be talking about it next week at some point because I'm making enough progress that it's becoming useful. So that's pretty exciting. Hello to Block, Aurora Draco, John. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much. All right. So the topic of today's stream, rational Emacs, a new base Emacs configuration. So I've been working on a base Emacs config for around a year now, probably a little bit less than a year, but I haven't really released it yet because I was using it mainly for making videos. I wanted a base configuration that I could use that has some sort of sensible defaults that I could build on top of if I wanted to show off a particular package. And I had used it in a couple videos and maybe some streams here and there. It was going by a different name at the time. I was calling it Bare Emacs, B-A-R-E, but that's just a dumb name. So recently I was thinking, you know, I have a few reasons why I want to build such a base configuration. So let me actually make it into a real project so that possibly other people could use it and maybe even contribute to it. So today I want us to talk about what? Who's doing a what? Okay, Jafer, I don't know what you're talking about. Ashra said, yes, I know. I saw that happen too. Sorry about that. That's one of these things that happens, you know? So the thing about Restream is that the key is already in use, so I don't think that anybody's gonna grab it. Here, let me just do something really quick. I'm gonna hide my screen. Now you get to see my face for a second. Let me just make sure that tab is gone. Okay. All right, here we go. Here we go. Now it's gone. No worries. All right, now the screen's coming back. There we are. Okay. Jafer says my stream wasn't showing yet. Yeah. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about why I decided to do this and what the goals are for the project and also how you can help. So I don't really have a lot of notes for this because if you don't know, I basically scheduled the stream 20 minutes before we all got here. So I haven't really prepared very much because I've been very busy this week. But we're going to go through the repository that I just pushed live and look at the README that I put together, and that should give you a lot more context about what we're doing here. Okay. So if you go to github.com/systemcrafter/rational.emacs, you'll see the repo here. I've got a basic configuration here. If you try to pull this right now, this second, it's not gonna work. The reason why is because I apparently checked in a bug with straight initialization. So I need to go and fix that, but we'll do that on stream in just a moment so that by the end of the stream, you should be able to pull this down to try it out. But I just wanna let you know that before you go and try to pull it and it doesn't work for you. But the idea here is that we're trying to create a sensible starting point for hacking your own Emacs configuration. So obviously, one of the things I've talked about a lot on this channel is building your own configuration from scratch. And I'm not deviating from that perspective. We've talked about, Doom Emacs, we've talked about Spacemacs before and why you might want to use one of those things or one of those configurations. I won't call them things. And it's a good reason to use one of those because they already have a lot of stuff set up for you. But what if you want something that's not so complete? You want something that has a good basis that has, really good defaults and a good environment so that you can get started up fast, but then build your own components and then potentially replace the stuff that this configuration gives you with your own configuration and gradually just, either end up at your own config or just continue using the base config until you decide you don't want to anymore. So that's sort of the idea. So if you wanted to get started with this after I fixed the bug, which I talked about before, I've got some quick start instructions here. Also got some details on how you configure it, which is basically just normal Emacs list, but we'll get to that also. Let's see. K4I says first time here. Welcome. Fares says, is your browser really in Emacs? I'm in EXWM. It's a window manager in Emacs. So yeah, technically it's in Emacs. So principles. The configuration is meant to follow a set of principles that make sense to me. I'm definitely interested in your feedback on what these principles are, and also discussion about what other principles that might be used for this project, because I want this to be different than the other configurations that are out there. There's no point in making a new configuration without it being different in some way, because otherwise it's just pointless. You could just use Doom Emacs if you wanted to. So first of all, minimal modular configuration. You know what? I should probably just load this up inside of Emacs instead of doing it this way. So let's do this instead. I'm gonna go to projects, code, rational Emacs, readme, throw this into org present. Boom, there we go. That's way better. Okay. So the core configuration for this config should only set up Emacs to have a cleaner presentation with sensible defaults. And it's up to you to decide which of the various modules, so this has configuration modules, which we'll show in a little bit, to load, which ones you want to load and when you load them. So by default, there's not a whole lot going on. You just get a sort of better presentation at first, and then maybe some stuff like a little bit of completion system setup and some other things that might be nice as a base, but then you can pull in modules that add other stuff to it. So for instance, what I would like is for the base configuration to only use things that are in box with Emacs, so you don't have to pull any packages down. We should just customize the inbuilt functionality, sort of like what we're going to do on the new Emacs from Scratch series, so that you don't have to pull any packages to just run this configuration from scratch. So configuration modules, which are part of this, should depend on other configuration modules and the base config as little as possible. When a configuration module needs to integrate with other functionality in Emacs, the standard extensibility points of each package should be used, like hooks, etc., instead of expecting our own configuration modules. So to say that in less words, the configuration modules should be written in a way that they are sort of independent, so that someone could go look at what is in one of these configuration modules and actually copy and paste it into an arbitrary Emacs config. And in theory, it should work. We shouldn't have a bunch of helper macros or other custom code that deviates too much from just base Emacs configuration. So also, we're trying to make it so that the modules are fairly resilient to not everything being loaded at once. So if there's functionality from one module that depends on another module, it should only activate whatever functionality is available at any given moment. So if you have some, let's say you have an evil configuration that you load up, if it has connections to Magit somehow, if Magit's not loaded, or if you haven't set up Magit at all, it shouldn't do anything. That sort of thing. And the implication is someone should be able to install or copy code from a rational config module into their own configuration without using rational Emacs. So part of this is to make it so that people can learn how to configure Emacs. So what's in this configuration should be, a source for learning. So someone could go look at this and then learn how to configure Emacs and learn how to configure a specific package by looking at the configuration modules. I don't know how realistic that is, but that's the principle we're going to follow, and we're going to see how far we can get with it. Also, prioritize built-in Emacs functionality. So where possible, we're going to leverage whatever is built into Emacs instead of external packages. For example, using project.el instead of projectile. There's no reason why you couldn't install projectile and use it if you wanted to, but by default, this configuration will use project.el because it's built into Emacs, and because personally, for me, it's good enough. I like project.el just fine. Also, using things like tab bar mode instead of perspective.el or other workspace style setups. One goal would be to have kind of a nice tab bar setup like I have here. That's something that's built in where you can just turn it on if you wanted to. Using eglot instead of LSP mode, mainly because eglot prioritizes built-in functionality. This is not a knock against LSP mode, but LSP mode is, a lot of stuff that you're pulling in. There's, a lot of sort of helper functionality, different packages. It customizes the UI quite a lot. Eglot is a little bit more imperceptible, I suppose. You don't really see a whole lot of eglot's functionality until you try to call it up. So I kind of like that from a minimalism standpoint. So that's probably what we'll try to use for any kind of language-specific configurations that we pull into this config, which I do want to do because that's always a sticking point for someone trying to use Emacs. The configuration for a particular language is hard to put together, so maybe we can have some of those baked into this configuration. Let's see, and possibly VC mode by default instead of Magit. That one's going to be hard because VC mode is kind of cryptic and the interface is not very good, so we will see how far we can get with that. But I'm curious to try to use VC mode more and see if I can, get used to it as part of my workflow. But you really still can't beat Magit. It'll be hard for me to get away from using that. So we'll see how that goes. But VC mode could be the default, but we might have a rational Magit package or something that pulls in more of the stuff. Nicholas F says rational Emacs, and Emacs such that for some integers p and q, p over q, etc., etc. Aurora says RIP, no Magit. Well, we're not saying Magit is not going to be used at all. I'm just saying that I have some aspirations here that I want to try to use more of the stuff that's built in, but Magit is awesome, so we might not be able to avoid it. What did Pro Guys do? Interesting. Okay. Also, works well in the terminal. Some people prefer to use Emacs in the terminal instead of as a graphical program. So it would be nice if the configuration works well in that case as well. I don't often use Emacs in the terminal, but there is one use case which is pretty interesting, and that is when you are using the Termux application on Android. Termux is basically a Linux environment that you can run inside of an app on Android, and it's quite good, and it has a build of Emacs inside of it. So it would be really cool if this configuration sort of works by default inside of Termux or Emacs in Termux, so that people who have Android can use Emacs on their phone and actually have a configuration that works well with that. We could even have some configuration module built into Rational Emacs that makes it easier to integrate with Termux, because there's a few different ways that you can call into system functionality to show notifications or interact with the APIs of the device. There's really cool stuff that you can do that we might be able to light up in this config if we wanted to, and maybe it's sort of stretching the limits a little bit. And maybe that some of these extra functionalities like that would be a separate package and not built into the main config. So another thing worth saying. He kept saying love from India. Well, I love India, so sorry, Pro Guys, if you were just trying to get attention on love from India. I appreciate the love for sure. Let's see, can be integrated with a Geeks configuration. Now, this is an important part for me. It should be possible to customize aspects of the Rational Emacs configuration inside of a Geeks home configuration so that things like font sizes, themes, etc. can be system specific. This is something I've been thinking about a lot, but I haven't had much time to go prototype yet. I have this idea, which probably the RDE configuration that Andrew Tropin's been working on does some of this already. I haven't really been looking too deeply into it, but I think that to configure Emacs with Geeks Home, what you really need to do is pull in an Emacs configuration that allows you to generate blocks of configuration that can be loaded in alongside the existing Emacs config code. So in your Geeks Home configuration in the Guile scheme code, you can configure certain variables like which font to use or what font size to use for a particular system, etc. And then that gets generated into Emacs list files that get loaded alongside the base config. Why would you want to do that? Well, I'm still toying with this idea of how far you can really go with Geeks Home, and I think that this is one thing that actually would make sense for doing per system Emacs configurations. Now, obviously, this won't work on Windows or Mac OS because Geeks is not available on those systems, but it at least would work on Linux systems. If you have multiple Linux systems, as I do, then you would be able to use Geeks Home to configure all aspects of your user config, including your Emacs configuration. It can also use packages installed via the Geeks package manager instead of straight.el. So by default, I will be using straight.el as the way to install packages in this config. But if you are using Geeks, it should be able to load the packages that are being installed from Geeks instead. So That's one thing that I want to make sure that is possible here, because I use Geeks with Emacs all the time, and I have most of my packages installed from Geeks. So this configuration needs to work for me because I intend to use it. At some point, I would like to be able to replace the base layer of my configuration with Rational Emacs with a new system that I sort of want to put together for this. Let's see. All right. Works well with Emacs 2. So Emacs 2 is an excellent tool for enabling the use of multiple Emacs configurations simultaneously. So this configuration needs to behave well when used with Emacs 2 so that users can try and use different Emacs configurations as needed. So this is something that's important to me because I have to use different Emacs configs while I'm demoing stuff on videos. And I'm already going to be showing you it being used with Emacs 2 right now. It just needs to continue to work well with Emacs 2, which is pretty easy because Emacs 2 actually is pretty good about isolating your Emacs configuration elements. So it's not really something that will be hard to maintain, I think. Lastly, it helps you learn Emacs Lisps. So instead of providing a higher level configuration system out of the box like other Emacs configurations, like for instance, Spacemacs has this concept of layers, which to me is overly complicated. Now, people who love Spacemacs may disagree with me, but I feel like it kind of gets away from how you can just hack Emacs very easily. So we won't be doing anything like that. I think Doom Emacs is more aligned with this idea of most of what you have is just plain old Emacs configuration with some stuff that you can pull in from the existing modules of configuration from Doom. But it does have a lot of helper macros, which are nice to have. But at the same time, if you want to learn how to write actual Emacs Lisp code for the functionality in Emacs, then sometimes it's better to be writing the real functionality, like when you're setting up hooks or hooking into package load actions, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it would be better for the code to be more raw Emacs Lisp and not use a bunch of helper macros. So we're not going to use use package. We're not going to use setup.el. We're just going to have normal Emacs Lisp code so that you can get a good example of what it is to write a complete Emacs config without either of those. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. We'll see how all that goes and whether we can stick with those principles. I'm also interested to hear if any of you have ideas on what other things we could try to accomplish with a configuration like this, because like I said, it's kind of pointless to make a new config if there aren't unique reasons to use it. Let's see, what else do I have in here? Okay, so why use this configuration? Why would you choose this over Doom Emacs, Spacemacs, Prelude, or the many other configurations that are out there right now? So the goal of this config is to make it easier to write your own Emacs config while using some pre-made configuration parts maintained by the community, which means all of us here at the System Crafters community. So instead of using a monolithic, all-encompassing approach, we strive to ensure that all the parts of this configuration are optional or interchangeable. So you don't need to use all of it. You can use only the parts that you need, and then you can write your own parts of the configuration for whatever else that you want. And you should even be able to, ideally, use the configuration modules we provide with your own indent.el file without even using this base configuration repo. So one possibility is that we make it so that you can install the modules. Okay, I'm hearing notifications. I have no idea what they are. Install the modules of this config separately from the core. So maybe they are packages that are on Melpa or non-GNU Elpa or something like that. So that you can install them individually if you wanted to without having to use the base Rational Emacs config. But if you just use Rational Emacs, all of them would be sort of in the box. I don't know how realistic that is. It is something that would be cool if we could do that, if we could accomplish it, basically. Modules. So here's a list of the current built-in modules. I think these are the ones that we have. Some of this may be aspirational because I haven't written some of them yet. But I will add links to these so that you can sort of take a look at them. Each of the module files should be documented. It isn't right now, but the goal would be to write a lot more documentation in those files. I would like to use sort of a reverse literate approach where in those files we can generate a website with documentation for all the configuration sections, not just to say what the configuration options are for each module, but also to have the actual configuration bits visible on a website so you can take a look at everything yourself if you wanted to. That's not done yet. That is something that someone could help with if you wanted to. If you wanted to try to help to get sort of like a reverse literate config setup going on so we could generate a website from this config, that'd be really cool. So rational defaults. So like sensible default settings for Emacs. And in fact, maybe we could just go try to take a look at some of these as we're talking about them. So if you look at the rational Emacs folder, you can see that there's a few init files here, an early init and init.el. There's an example config file, which you can look at for, well, apparently it's empty, which is great. I thought I had put something in there, but apparently it didn't. What else? The modules folder. This is sort of the one that matters right now. So rational defaults. So right now there's not a whole lot in there, and that's something that people in the community could definitely help to make suggestions on. But there's some things that I've used that I kind of liked having set up here, which is like, you know, turning on global auto revert mode to make sure that any files that get changed, any files you have buffers open for that get changed outside of Emacs automatically get reverted if they can be. And also to auto revert non-file buffers like dired buffers. So if you add a file to a directory and there's a dired buffer open for it, it should automatically refresh so that you can see the latest updates to those files. Indent tabs mode. This one is sort of controversial. Definitely interested to hear people's thoughts on that, about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I know that's always a contentious point. And that's pretty much it for now. We're going to add more stuff to it later, but this is sort of what we're starting with on that front. So then, let's see. Dired always makes it so I can't switch tabs. Ashra says, I believe I have a reverse tangling script for eLisp somewhere. Could provide that as a starting point if I ever find it. Yeah, well, definitely. If you have that, please feel free to contribute that, or, you know, just, you know, share a link to it. We maybe could use it as a basis. Aurora is mentioning the different kinds of UI tweaks you can make by default. We will show that too. So, rational UI. Extra UI configuration for a better experience, like mode line, etc. So we don't have a whole lot in there right now, I think. Let's see, rational UI. So we pull in all the icons, do mode line, do themes, which key, which I'll probably take out because I like Embark better for this now. And I apparently did not add some of the stuff here. Tabs are usually better than spaces, at least when you're working with other people. Yeah, Knox, I agree with you that it's something that is becoming more apparent to me that, you know, tabs do have value to some people, I think. So just basic Doom mode line configuration, setting up which key a little bit. Now, I kind of would be interested in making a custom mode line config and not using Doom mode line, because there's a lot of stuff in there that you really don't need. I mean, if you wanted to use Doom mode line, you totally could do that with this config, but having a more minimal mode line to start with would be interesting. There's another package that I've been looking at lately called Simple Mode Line. I think that's what it's called anyway. That is much more simple, and it looks cleaner to start with, doesn't have a whole lot of stuff in it, so we might start with that or write something from scratch for this configuration. I don't really know. It's not really a major point of importance, but it is something that we can look into at some point if people are interested in contributing something for this. So let's see, we have, whoops. Well, let's just do it this way. Rational workspace and improved workspace experience based on tab bar mode. I think we don't have that one yet, but the goal is to have something like what I have right here for my tab bar built into the configuration, because I think tab bar mode is kind of a great way to separate the work that you're doing and have a nice way to, you know, present things on your screen. Also have a global mode line effectively, which is pretty cool. So we'll have something like that for this config. Rational selection, a better selection framework configuration based on Vertigo. I'm calling it selection, but I actually have a completion here because I'm sort of going back and forth on what the right naming convention should be for that, because completion is not necessarily the most accurate term for what's going on there. It's really more about selection, because you're being given a list of options. Like if you do meta X with Vertigo, you're being given a list of options. You can type evil dash. It just helps you to filter down and select things. It's not really completing so much as it is selecting, but that's sort of just, you know, splitting hairs at this point. But you have the obvious Vimco stack or Vomek stack or whatever you want to call it, the beginning letters of Vertigo, Consult, Orderless, Marginalia, and Embark. And you have a basic configuration for those out of the box so that you can have Vertigo and everything else set up pretty nicely. Probably it needs some work in here. I haven't really touched it in a while, but it is something that we could work on. Also, rational desktop, a desktop environment centered around EXWM. This is also not here, but I would probably try to pull in some of the stuff from my own desktop environment configuration into this so that you can get an EXWM config set up pretty easily with good defaults, which is going to be pretty nice, I think. Edda says, by the way, you can use Embark instead of which key. Didn't know that. Yeah, it's really nice. I like it a lot. So let me show you an example of using Embark instead of which key. So if I press Control H, I won't get any which key. I'm gonna get the normal sort of prompt down here for Control H. But if I press Control H again, well, that didn't work. So there's a binding for that already. How about Control C? Control C and then Control H. I get this nice dispatch menu from Embark where you can filter down to specific commands based on, how about test? Anything you want. So it's way easier to use in which key, in my opinion. You still get all the same information. It's just presented in a better form. So I prefer it over which key, and that's what this configuration is going to have. Sam asks, is part of the purpose of this to have a more performance startup? Yes, that would definitely be a goal. I just haven't listed it. I mean, having any kind of configuration, you would hope that it would be fast to start up. So that is something we want to do. I haven't done anything to compile the Emacs Lisp code to bytecode or native code or anything like that yet, but it is something that we need to add. Let's see. Benoit says, are we coding rational rows on Emacs? I don't know what that is. All right. Rational present, tools for giving presentations. So one thing that might be nice is if I actually shared the configuration I use for my own presentations for system crafters in this configuration so that you can use it yourself if you wanted to give presentations inside of Emacs. So that's something we'll definitely do. Similarly, rational screencast, tools for doing screencasts for things like having the keycast mode somewhere like here up in the tab bar, which I keep forgetting to turn on, but it's nice to have there whenever I actually have it. And that's it for now for what I have in mind for modules, but there's probably going to be more later that we come up with that are going to be useful to ask or to add. So please feel free to give your suggestions in the issues on the repo, and if you have good ideas, you can definitely find me in IRC or Discord, etc., and we can talk about any of that, which would be great, I think. Let's see. Tomas says, oh, if you don't know rational rows, it means I'm old. Well, I mean, it may just be something I missed out on. Benoit says, IBM bought rational a long time ago. Yeah, that's true. Jonathan says, how about a rational publish module mode to go along with rational present, like publishing websites and stuff? Let's see. Let me go back to the ideas. Jeff says, do you accept PRs or change sets? Yes, I do. This is definitely a project where I would be very happy to have contributions, because right now you can see it's very bare bones and basic, but contributions that fall within the principles that I've set forth in the README are certainly welcome, just to have sort of a growing basis of things that we can have in the config. And I'll review the PRs and help to make them into something that is effective and works for the system. So definitely, if you have ideas and you want to send a PR, don't feel afraid to do it. Just send it for sure. Jafer says, why MIT over GPL3? Well, I have an explanation for that. Let's see. Is it here? Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I'm making it MIT instead of GPL because I want you to be able to copy the pieces of the configuration without worrying about it. Because I think some people worry about when they see a repo that has code that's GPL3 about, oh, can I not like share my own configuration or anything like that? If you have a dot files, or if I have my dot files in GPL3, your license is GPL3, I mean, it's a gray area, but I personally feel like you're not distributing it to other people, so you don't really need to share it. But I'm just trying to like avoid any confusion that people might have about whether they can copy and paste parts of the config without having to give attribution or whatever, because I don't care. I mean, part of making this is so that people can learn from it and use it. So I don't want to prevent people just on license grounds. Japer says it would be nice to add a short contributing section to the README. Yeah, that's a great idea. I should do that. Jonathan says, I would love to present, maybe using org present during a meeting and supply up-to-date links to web or PDF versions of presentations in real time. That is a great idea, actually. Yeah. So, let's see. Maybe for publishing presentation slides and or websites. Trip says, we're old, he's young, and the OMG's heyday was a long time ago. Well, I'm not that young, dude. I just turned 39, so I'm pretty in the middle of the road there. Peter says, also PDF through LaTeX would be awesome in a publish module. Yeah. Etta says this config's looking really cool. Yeah, I hope it does turn out to be pretty cool. We'll see. All right, what else? Let me go back to the README. Customization. Okay, so I'm going to follow a similar approach as Doom Emacs does on this. And this is one place where we're sort of deviating from the idea that it should be basically like normal Emacs configuration, in that we're going to have our own folder for configuration files. It's going to be in your home folder, either at .rational-emacs/config.el or in the .config folder if you're on Linux and you are using more of the XDG desktop specification folder structure, I guess. So definitely open to feedback on that. Noble and Savage says, did I miss where this is going to use evil? Not by default. So evil will not be turned on by default in this config, but there will be an evil config. If you look in the configuration folder, there is a rational evil setup, which I need to go back and edit, but I intend for it to have an evil setup because I use evil and it's kind of hard for me not to use evil, but it's not by default. Knox says, along the lines of Vertigo, Consult, Embark, maybe Corfu for completion at point. Yeah, Corfu will be pulled in too. I just haven't put that in yet. So in your configuration, you can set any Emacs configuration variables, face attributes, themes as you normally would, but you can pull in these configuration modules just by using require. So the modules path will be added to Emacs load path, so you can just require these to have them be pulled in. And it basically just works like any other Emacs package. There's nothing special to it. Since they're built into the configuration, you don't have to install them. They're already there. You can just require them to pull them in. And then you can just set face attributes for setting the font that you want to use, and then load a theme that you would like to use, and then you're ready to go. So the thing I did not mention is that each of these configuration modules will have their own configuration variables using def-var or def-custom. I guess def-custom is the appropriate way. So that you can turn on and off certain things that might be configured in those configuration modules or customize them a little bit. However, that would only be used for stuff that's specific to these configuration modules and not the packages themselves that they're configuring. So we're not going to like have a layer of configuration on top of the lower level packages. It's really only going to be the configuration for the module itself. So if you wanted to configure the evil package, you could use the evil's own configuration variables to customize that. But the rational evil package may say, do you want like evil collection to be turned on or not? That kind of thing. So that's the level of configuration we'll be using for those. And we may, for things like rational UI, we may have like a variable for like what font to use by default, so you don't have to call set face attribute yourself. But I guess it sort of takes that experience away from you as an Emacs user if you're not calling set face attribute. So I'm not sure. Karthik says, I use a transient I wrote to set up Emacs for screencasts. We'll make a PR. That'd be awesome. And Karthik, by the way, we miss you in the IRC. Let's see. Japer says, add rational use package to the README module overview. Is there a rational use package or shouldn't be? Rational use package. Ah, yes, that's right. I forgot that I put that in there. So if you want to use package, I did put in a use package module in case for whatever reason you wanted to use package for your own config, just to make it easier to pull in. I probably, yeah, I need to put non-GNU ELPA in here because that's new, but that's something that should be mentioned. Jafer, if you want to make a PR, you should do that. Okay, so back to the README. We'll try this example config in a moment as well, I think. Using it with Emacs 2, I mean, obviously, if you've used Emacs 2, you know what to do, but this is just some basic instructions on how to use this configuration with Emacs 2 in case of, in case you want to set up Emacs 2 and then try out rational Emacs with it, you could do it this way for sure. And then the license thing I mentioned here is code's licensed under the MIT license. Why? So you can copy the code. Tomas says, I just cloned and tried it and it worked as is. I'm surprised because it didn't work for me. So we're going to find out in just a moment. Loaded in 66 seconds? That doesn't sound good. Okay, so let's see. Let's try it out. It's not going to work and we're going to fix it. So let's just get that on the table. Oh, and Jafer says, what about the straight.el config? Where is that hiding? I should mention, we have early init config, which sets the GC settings. Early init, if you don't know about it, I don't know if that was 27, maybe it was Emacs 27, but early init is a configuration file that gets loaded very early in the init process to set certain things that affect startup performance and affect the display of the first frame that shows up in Emacs. So it's kind of useful for that stuff. We set the const threshold much higher to make it so that so Emacs doesn't garbage collect so often whenever we start up. We check for a native compilation feature to configure certain settings, like not spewing errors at you the whole time while it's compiling. Also, we're setting the load path, or the ELN cache, basically the ELN cache path, so that whenever native comp compiles things, it puts it into the folder for the configuration and not in the .emacs.d folder, because it might be where Emacs is. Let's see. Ashra says, transient is currently not a dependency of rational Emacs, though. It can be, though, for the screencast module if it is needed. And also, transient is part of Emacs 28 now, I think, which is cool. All right, so then enable package at startup. We don't use package.el, so I turn that off. We also inhibit startup message, and we set some of the things by default in the UI. I might not make this menu bar thing by default. We'll see about that. But we're setting it up so that whenever the first frame pops up, the background color and foreground color are tweaked so it's not blindingly white whenever it shows up. I think I need to fix this mouse color thing because it's not working correctly. And also we're setting up specific configuration paths for rational Emacs. We sort of just look and see whether certain paths exist, and then we use them if necessary. And that's pretty much it. We also make it possible that you can have your own early config.el in your rational Emacs folder if you wanted to try to use that. And then init.el, this is where the straight.el setup is. We have the bootstrap script there for that. Setting default coding systems on Windows, which is kind of necessary because otherwise you get errors about that all the time. Jeff says, it might be a good idea to avoid using the tilde alias for the home folder. You're probably right. I haven't really thought about that too much. We add the load path, the modules path to the load path so that you can load the rational config modules. So we have this rational ensure package function that I've been adding. And that really was only needed to make sure that a package is installed either through Geeks or through Straight. And this sort of violates a little bit of my principles because I didn't want to have any layer over the functions you need to call, but I think this is one that's sort of necessary if we do want to support Geeks as well. So that's something that's there. Also, loading the user's configuration file, let's see. We have a variable that we set for that, and then we try to load it if it exists, and then we set the const threshold back. So it's not much in this init.el file. The idea is that you would configure this configuration through your config.el file that you have in your own config folder, and then pull in whatever modules that you want. Let's see. Karthik says, yep, that's why I switched a bunch of functions to transient. I don't use hydras anymore, just transients in Emacs 28's repeat mode. Yeah, so if you use hydra a lot, now that transient is built into Emacs, you might be able to replace some of your hydras with transient instead, depending on how you use hydras. I need to look into that because I haven't really used transient for those types of things. All right. Let's see now. Let's try to run it. Let's see what happens when I do that, because the last time I did this, it didn't work. So it could be related to the fact that I'm running it in Geek Shell, but let's see. All right, so by default, you get a blue background. Oh, did it load? Ah, no. Okay, so I'm getting this error with straight.el bootstrap failed. I'm not exactly sure why. So Tomas says, maybe you can add advice for straight use package to achieve the same as you do. That's a great idea, actually. So basically, silently cause it not to install if we're using Geeks packages instead. I like that idea, actually. So bootstrapping straight.el. Let's see what's going on with that, because I don't know why we would have an issue with it. All right, let me use text scale adjust. Ew, terrible. You know, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna use, well, we won't even get to that point yet. I'm trying to start doing the configuration a little bit so that we can get the, God, this backdrop's killing me. Sorry. So we can get we can start actually configuring it a little bit using some of the stuff that's built in so you can see how that goes. But by default, we do have this sort of built-in theme loading. We may use Modus themes instead as the default now that I've started getting a little bit more familiarized with them, but we can definitely chat about that. I kind of like this deeper blue theme though. It's really nice. Okay, so the bootstrapping stuff. I don't know what is going on with this and why it doesn't work. So bootstrap failed, call process, Emacs binary path. I wonder if it's tripping up on the fact that I'm running it in Geeks Home somehow. Emacs binary path. Let's check that variable. Oops. Emacs binary path. What? Is that something that comes with straight? Where does it even put that? Karthik says, is there a repo already? Yeah, it's on the System Crafters GitHub. systemcrafters.com/rational-emacs. Okay, so thank you, Manikandam, for subscribing. So let me see. Okay, let's just try doing this outside of. No, let's not save that. I didn't change anything worth saving. Let's do it outside of Geek Shell, because maybe that's what's going on. It's just throwing up somehow. The problem is some of my packages will show up there. Kind of want to not have them do that, because I have a lot of stuff installed from Geeks and they'll just get loaded automatically, but whatever. Let's just do it this way. So apparently running it in Geek Shell is the problem. I never did figure that out, apparently. So it's bootstrapping straight.el, and then it won't do much because the base config doesn't have anything extra in it. Thanks, Ashraz. All right, so it's taking a while to bootstrap straight.el. We'll see what happens with that. Once it's bootstrapped, we can probably go back to using Geeks Home. Jeff says, does using straight line up with the principles? Shouldn't we prefer package.el since it's built in? Yeah. The thing about using straight instead is that straight gives you the ability to pull in packages from GitHub repositories, which might be useful for this project. Package.el is only pulling from package repos, so that's sort of the reason why I chose to do it. I am open to changing that decision, though, if people are interested. And it could be something that you could pull in straight as a secondary package manager, or replace it with some configuration that you could load. So we could change that if people were interested in changing it. Gary says, "Hi, David. I used Emacs for the first time the other week after using Linux since around 2005. I spent the last week setting up Emacs following your Emacs from scratch videos. It's been a great experience. Definitely will be sticking with it. Thank you for the fantastic videos." Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that. It's always nice to hear when people are having luck with it. Failed to run Git. What? Come on now. That's not even right. eShell. Git. Git is here. Well, maybe we will have to not use straight by default. Okay, now looking for GNU Elpa mirror recipe cloning Melpa. This is not a good sign starting off. Okay, now it's actually cloning things. That's good. Gavin says Quelpa exists. That's what I use. That's just another thing though. Another external package manager. So, what's the benefit of Quelpa, Gavin? Tomas says straight.el is the future. Let's exercise it, and maybe it will be part of the official Emacs 2 eventually. Maybe so. That would be cool. Okay, so now it says rational Emacs loaded in 18 seconds, which doesn't sound very good, but it had to set some stuff up to begin with. Let me do this again. Because it's loading all the auto loads from Geeks, it takes a little bit of time. It loads in 1.65 seconds, but if I load it with Geeks shell, then it basically just pops up immediately, 0.5 seconds. But there's nothing in the configuration, so that makes sense. Jafer says you could use alpha papas with Emacs script. Probably could. I don't really have that one at the moment, but we might try it a little bit later. Ashra says, I noticed my current configuration is 72 lines long, including 20 lines added by custom.el. Well, you're definitely more of an Emacs monk than I am. Cool. So I would actually be interested to see your 72 line config. Gavin says, I use Quelpa for external packages, not a complete package manager solution. Cool, good to know. Okay, so let's copy that little bit of example config here that I have and see if it works. I'm kind of curious if it will work just sort of out of the box. So I'm going to put that in .config/rational-emacs/config.el, right? Whoops. Love how that keeps happening to me. That's my fault though. No. Config, come on now. Config.el, there we are, cool. And let's fix the indentation on all that. All right, that's done. We're creating the folder. And now I'll go back to the shell and then run that again. Failed to run Git, give me a break. Did I not put that in the manifest? I sure did, so. Straight's doing something a little bit sketchy, I think. All right, let's just do this again. Okay, so now it's trying to install a bunch of packages based on what's in the config modules. Tomas says it loaded in 0.25 seconds on my M1 Mac Mini. Yeah, I'm streaming at the same time here, so it definitely affects the performance. All right, let's see what happens here. It'll take a little bit of time to set up all the packages, obviously, because it's installing them from scratch here, but it will get there. And then once it's done, we should see some differences in how it looks, because it's going to have to do mode line setup. It's going to have a Doom theme setup, and it's going to have Vertigo also working, because right now Vertigo's not turned on. Okay, Edda says clone here and it's working out of the box. I'm glad to hear it's working out of the box for people, because that was going to be a very nasty surprise for me if I, announce the new config and it doesn't work. Damas says, yeah, I'm streaming too, streaming you. Yeah, well, it's a little bit different when you're doing the encoding on that. All right, cannot open file rational selection. Ah, yes, that's probably right. Let me fix that. Let's see. Little changes to rational completion. Completions? Which one was it? Completions? Rational completion. Okay. Let's go back here. We'll restart this now. No. Not that one. Okay, let's do it again. Takes a little while. Sorry about that. Jafer says, default font should be Comic Noir to trigger people who hate Comic Sans, but it's actually really pretty. Well, I don't want to put people off, But as far as like default font is concerned, I don't think it's possible to have a default font. Okay, here we go. Because you don't really know what the user has installed on their system. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if you install Doom themes and Doom mode line, things will look a lot better as soon as you set it up. But yeah, that's basically what you get from setting up your configuration with the config file inside of Rational Emacs. Now, I'm going to tweak this font because it's very small on the screen. Let's just make this be, what, maybe 220? Is that enough? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I mean, if you install Rational Emacs as the instructions tell you to do, and then you set up the config file like this, you can just pull all this stuff in to have a working basic configuration that has some good stuff configured for you by default, so that you don't have to go do it yourself if you don't want to. Like if you'd rather spend your time configuring other parts of Emacs. Let's see. Jeff says, I prefer Quelpa to others. It's built largely on package.el, but provides the ability to get things from Git repos. Package management can be a bit polarizing, though. Well, that's a good suggestion. We'll have to look into that. All right, so what else can we talk about here then? What can we do? Well, first of all, what I would like to do is get rid of which key. So let's just do that right now. So I will go into projects, code, Rational Emacs, and then modules, UI, right? Okay, so we're going to get rid of which key because I want to use embark instead for that. Hello, Dr. Lazy Beats. Jeff says, otherwise it might be just as useful to have a rational package.d folder where people clone things and they just get added to the load path. That's possible too, yeah. Ashra says, I handpick eLisp lines I find online and add them to a single Frankenstein.el. Yeah, you're not serious. Yeah, I know that you're a lot more rational than that. Okay, so all the icons install fonts. They should give you a way to check to see if they are installed already, I think. Let's just delete that line for now. And I guess the problem here is that you're not going to get something like which key without installing the, or using the, oh, come on. Uh-oh. I got to stop doing that. Full screen in the Emacs config. If I hit Super E, then it tries to pull up my DRED in another buffer, and I lose focus, and I might lose control of Emacs. Okay, so I'm going to jump into rational completion, which probably should be rational selection. I don't know. And then for embark, let's see, where is that thing? Okay, so prefix help command. It's already set up, which is good. For the embark key, let's see. There was a suggestion, I think, for what the key for that should be, and I would like to follow that suggestion. Gavin says this Control-H postfix does a decent job. Yeah, it does do a decent job. That's true. So if you don't want to use embark for that, then you can just use Control-H after any key prefix, and it will give you a list of bindings, which is kind of nice. I think the embark experience is a little bit better, though. Embark act. I think I just saw it, actually. Embark act. There is a default binding that it was suggested. Bind. Come on, come on, come on. Where are you? I saw it. I don't think it was that one that I saw. CSCM? Okay, CM. Ah, that wasn't it. Artist Scientist says, I'm a new subscriber to your channel. Would you recommend that I go through the old Emacs from scratch series or just stick to the new one? Well, I would say go through the old one just because it's complete and you can actually make progress with it. I haven't made enough progress making the videos on the new one yet. So I would say if you want to get started making an Emacs config, definitely. Karthik says the default suggested by Embark is Control Dot. Is that Control Dot as a global binding, or is it, should it be like Control Alt Dot? Yeah, there's not a default binding, but there's a suggested binding, I think. Maybe it is just Control Dot. All right. Yeah, so embark act is bound to control dot. So global set key, keyboard, control dot, embark act. Just delete that one. Yeah, and the mini buffer local map. I think that's one also that I had set up. So that maybe that one is control alt dot. Let's check that mini buffer local map. I mean, maybe it could be control dot there too, huh? Is it the same thing? Embark act? Let's see without it. Let me just do this. All right, so I go into meta X, move down here, control dot. Yeah, okay, so it does work the right way. So maybe you don't even need a separate mini buffer local map binding. You just need the main embark binding. So then let's go, let's see, control X, control F, control dot. Yeah, okay, that's good enough. Embark is great, man, gotta say. Okay, so we got order list set up. I think it's got a decent configuration. Also for this embark prefix help command, I think it must already be done. Let's see, control C, control H. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Control X, control H, yeah, it's set up already. Cool. This mini buffer backward kill thing, I need to get rid of it because it's a mess. So let's see if Vertigo, well, let's go into the straight folder, straight, repos, Vertigo, extensions, what's it called? Vertigo directory? Vertigo directory up. That might be it. I need to set this up in my own config because this is something that bugs me constantly. So what we're doing right now is just hacking a little bit on this config just to make some progress on it. So if you have suggestions, please feel free. So with Vertigo, I want to set up Vertigo directory. I hope this works correctly. Require Vertigo directory. Yep, okay. And then on this, let's use Vertigo directory. Oops, I should put this here too. Let's put it right there, actually. Vertigo directory up. Let's try that out and see what it does. So Control X, Control F. Well, that doesn't work now. Okay. So that does work, which is good. Alt H. Great. That's correct. Now, the problem I was having with my old implementation of going up is whenever I would delete one of these folders, it would copy the folder name. So anything I had yanked already would be deleted. So let's try this. Let me copy that. If I paste, it's there. Okay. Now if I do Control X, Control F, Alt H, cancel out on this and press P. Okay, great. Now that problem's fixed. That's been something that has been bugging me for a while. I just never got around to fixing it. Ashra is asking a good question. Should I bind this within the Vertigo map or a mini buffer local map? Is there a specific Vertigo map? Yeah, there is one. I don't know. It's derived from mini buffer local map, but maybe it does make more sense. Japer says, isn't meta H sort of an evil key binding? Yes. I don't know if there's another way to do that with, let's see, what is it? Backwards delete? Backwards kill word. Meta delete. So, I don't know. For me, it's sort of a convenience. Delete region, which doesn't copy. Use Vertigo map in the same file. Do I? Nice. I like that. Obviously, I've been copying and pasting things from my own configuration here. So let's see. Clean that up a little bit. Now, Control J, Control K, this stuff should probably only be loaded. Maybe some of these should only be loaded if we load evil. So how about that? With eval after load evil. Pretty sure that's going to work. I'll put these here. Okay. So then whenever evil gets loaded, I think I have evil loaded now. So let's see, Control F, vertical exit. I mean, that one is sort of controversial. That's one that I use in my own personal config, but probably this is not something that should be here by default. I'll just drop that into my own config.el file. So what is going on? Oh, my buffer switching bindings aren't here. No wonder. Okay, so let's do that. And then go back to rational completion. Probably should also set up my other sort of common bindings. Hey, Sarab. So global set key, keyboard, CMJ, consult buffer. All right, that's much better. And then if I'm in consult buffer, I can go up and down. Great. All right, so I have my own little special key bindings here that I want to use. Let's see, what else? So for rational UI, maybe we want to have a configuration setting for the default font, because it might be nice. So how about if I say set Q rational UI font? How about default font? JetBrains mono. Problem here is if you want to have like a size and a font name, not great. I'm trying to think if there's a better way to do this. I mean, obviously you could have a list. Hello, Blockchain Chat. Thank you for subscribing. So I could have a list with a maybe. I'm trying to think of the right way to do this. Rob says, I've watched almost all the videos. Well, that's a lot of videos. Nice work on that. Thank you. Hello, Master Light. Okay. Because, you know, calling set face attribute obviously is not hard, but it might be, yeah, plist is a possibility. But we're basically just, you know, replicating the same thing as what's already there. So we could do this, right? Size. But you start to drift from the actual terminology in Emacs, so maybe we should stick to what's there. So height 220. Height is a terrible name, but it actually is accurate in terms of what it describes. Japer says this problem always happens when writing wrappers. Yes, I agree. You have to decide how much you're wrapping and how much you're letting bleed through. In this case, I would prefer to let things bleed through a little bit. Defun? I have to set the variable, yeah. So let's delete this. Does the width attribute work? I don't know. Prosimia says, like Doom Emacs. What about using a font spec? I haven't looked at what Doom does for this, but I'm certainly interested to see what they do. Rational UI. We're going to set the stuff here. What we'll do is start off with some def customs. So what did I call that? Rational UI default font. Yeah. Then make it be nil by default. The default, or I guess the configuration of the default face uses a plist with the same key names as accepted by set face attribute. Let's change the direction of these a little bit. Font spec family Fiera Monos. Oh, font spec. What's that? Font spec. Okay, that's actually a real thing. Return a newly created font spec with arguments as properties. I mean, you might as well be calling set face attribute at that point, but I guess it's the same thing as what I'm doing here. So, all right. So what we could do is when rational UI default font, then we could say set face attribute, indent all of that. We put Lispy in here too, probably. Set face attribute default nil, and then for, let's see, we're gonna cons. This is terrible, but this is what we're gonna do. Font. and then whatever is in Rational UI default font. So let me try that really quickly. I'm going to go back to the config.el. I'm going to eval this. Okay. Then I will eval this const just out of curiosity to see what it does. Okay, font. JetBrains mono height. Is that right? Is that face or family? Gun says Rational Emacs sounds like IBM Rational Clearcase. Yeah, I'm definitely triggering some memories of people who've dealt with IBM in the past. I'm sorry about that. I'm also open to different ideas for the name of this as well, because I picked the name because it sounded cool and it's sort of like, you know, it's like a sensible default package or config. Master Light says, are you going to make a video on eLists, something like Emacs from scratch? Yes, you should check out the series that I did called Learning Emacs Lists, because it does that. Okay, so let me go back to config. Okay, it is font after all. So if I do this, wrong argument type symbol P, it's not the const though. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, that's my mistake. I need to splice that in. Whoops. Let's do that. No. Okay. Yes, I need to apply. Apply set face attribute. And then the list is going to be default nil. And then, well, no. Let's do this. Let's do some list magic here. I think that should do it, right? Okay, I think that did work. Can I... What is the... Okay, so it's just a rest parameter? Cool, so I don't need to wrap it. I guess I did need to wrap it, though. Do I need fun call for that? Fun call. Rest arguments. I wonder if it called set face attribute right. Let me go change something here. Let's change this height to something ridiculous like 320, which is going to be way too big. Then we'll go back and run this again. Okay, it didn't do anything, so obviously that's not right. Screams at screen for what? Aurora says, do you even need the height thing? Can't you just give it JetBrains Mono 22 in the font? I don't know. Can you? Set default font spec, family. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the way to do it in the end. I just don't want them to have to put the family thing first, which obviously is kind of a stupid reason, but... All right. Yeah, you already provided the apply line. Maybe I don't need to do that here. See, the thing is I need to be able to splice that in, but maybe I don't have to, right? Default, no. Let's do that. Okay, that worked. Ashraz was right, as always. All right, so let's put this back to 220. Did I not eval? Whoops. Okay, that's right. Let me bump that a little bit. Needs to be a little bit bigger. This is not working, is it? What's happening? Could just be a font, or excuse me, a function instead of a variable, because obviously it doesn't change when you set the variable. If I set a, I could set a trigger on the def custom, but then it won't get set if I. Okay. I'm starting to question the decision to even have a variable for that anyway, because, you know, set face attribute is good enough. It's just a terrible name. Hey, Alejandro. Sarab says, why can't Emacs have simple font change settings? I can never get it perfect. Yeah, it's not the most clear thing in the world. All right, so that works. We did that. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I'm open to feedback on that. Just restarting the config to make sure it sets up correctly. Okay, cool. That works. All right, so let's get back into the modules. What else did I want to set up on this? Keycast. Does this work? No. Yeah, we need to fix that for do mode line, but we need to make sure that do mode line is not, or whether it's installed or not. Changing fonts is obnoxious indeed. Yeah, it's not the nicest part of the Emacs config APIs, but it's also not very hard to use once you learn what to do. Okay, so what else is important for a base configuration? I mean, we could look at the tab bar configuration. Man, this backdrop, I swear to God. I know I keep complaining about the backdrop, but I just, every time I see it flopping around back there, it just makes me upset. So tab bar is a possibility that we could work on. What else? What do I have here in the README? Whoops. What things? What the That's not helpful. It just steals focus. Nice. All right, so readme.org. Okay, here we are. Customized screen for GUI-like experience. Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. And I'm not a fan. But it is fine for font configuration, I guess. Modus themes with minimal config. Yeah, I have a minimal config that I like for that. In fact, I could probably try to pull it out. But I do like that default blue, deeper blue config. I don't know, I think it looks kind of nice out of the box. All right, so evil selection. Maybe I should just change that for now so that nobody's confused. Completion. Add some links to these things. Modules / rational completion.el. Okay. So some of these don't exist yet, obviously. We could say rational evil. Oniket says, sorry, late today. Any custom keybind settings today? Not that I know of. Thanks for subscribing, Master Light. All right, so module / rational evil.el. That one I need to tweak a little bit because it's got some of my own stuff. Etta says, I dazed off for a while, so ignore if I already mentioned helpful or something similar. Yeah, helpful. I don't think I put that in yet, did I? Let me check. Rational UI. Helpful. No, I did not. That's definitely something that should be in here. Because it is very helpful. Let's see. Set default font. Okay, yeah, there's apparently a key binding for setting default font in Emacs, which is nice. Present screencast workspace. Those are not there yet. So let's go into rational UI. And then, should this be in UI? I wonder if it should be somewhere else. Sort of basic stuff. Yeah, helpful is great. I'm trying to think where I should put it. I mean, what does helpful really do for you? I mean, it makes the documentation better for functions. So should it be like rational elisp? We'll put it here for now, and we'll move it around later. Japer says elisp demos, maybe. Okay, so we're gonna put in straight use package helpful. Need to check on this a little bit because rational core or something similar. That's basically what rational defaults or init.el are, effectively. All right, so require helpful. And that by itself is not enough. Helpful key. Yeah, so you need to be able to enable it, which I think requires remapping key binding. So if I go look at my own config for this. Oh, no, actually, let's go to the Emacs helpful repo to see what is suggested for the config, because what I have may not be the right thing. Okay, so right here, let's take all this recommended config and put it in. Okay, and then we'll copy the rest of these as well. Make sure that they are not something terrible. Excludes macros. Emacs, go to command mode. That's fine, I guess. So if we go ahead and run these, eval region, then control HF, helpful key, taking a sweet time. Okay, cool. Then it did pull it up. That's great. You need to rebind them. Helpful doesn't do it by default. That's right. Yep. Tomas says helpful is kind of similar in category as marginalia. Yeah, I guess the oh, rational doc. That's not bad. I like that. Rational help is also a possible thing, but maybe that's too narrow. Oh, and that's what someone asked about rational core for. Persimia says maybe that belongs in rational core. Yeah, that's not a bad idea also. Why is Q not working to exit this buffer? So what else do I have in the evil setup? Because obviously some of what I expect is not working. Evil collection. Oh, apparently I have a def var here. Should not be a def custom. Discourage arrow keys. Yeah, that's something that I wanted to set up so that it will try to make you not use arrow keys, because you know, if you use evil, you should probably use HJKL instead. So let's see. Yeah, it's working currently. All right. So custom mode, eShell mode, term mode. Yeah, which is things that we're trying to turn it to Emacs state by default. So basically shell modes. This probably belongs here. I mean, Tomas says +1 for rational core. Yeah, could be. Edda says maybe Emacs startup a message like if you need any help, press key combination for more info. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff says maybe using global set key with remap instead is better. That's true because it can remap things in multiple places. So let's go back to where we had that rational UI. So we'll use remap describe function. Hey Bill, nice to see you. So we can use remap. Wait, hold on. Is there like a describe callable? What does helpful callable give us? Function macro or special form name symbol. That's describe symbol, right? But I guess what they're doing is making control HF bind that. I guess that's fine, right? No, it's remap describe function. Okay, so that does work without crashing. And then here we can use remap describe variable. And then same thing for describe key. Japer says, I wouldn't discourage arrow keys in this config. It would be a conscious choice to turn arrows off. I agree with you. Yep. Let's go and do that then. Evil. Go up here. Let's set this to nil. Okay. Helpful at point. I don't even know what that is. Oh. Isn't that the same thing? Control C, Control D. Control C, Control D is not a good binding though, actually, because you kind of need that in some modes. I found. So maybe I don't like that very much. Let's take that out. Not a fan. Helpful function. We keep it. Alejandro says, is this a new configuration model? Yes. Well, it's not a model per se. It's more like a starting point configuration for people who want one. All right. Mod line. Okay. Karthik says, many programming environments in Emacs use Control-C, Control-D. Yes, exactly. That's why I don't want to stomp on that one. Oniket says, is there anything for symbol? I think this is what this helpful callable is doing. So if we use Control-H, Control-F here. So Control-H, Control-F, we could use that for, let's see, what's a macro name? With current buffer. It's a macro, right? Yeah. So that basically just makes macros available with Control-H-F also. Edda says something like dashboard, so you could put a link at startup to the documentation online for the config. That's not a bad idea. It's something that could be turned off if warranted. If we could write some custom code that does that without having to pull in an external package for that, it'd be nice. I guess, is there a way to customize the startup screen? Fancy startup text. What's this? Yeah, fancy startup text. We could just change fancy startup text to make this be something different. I've never customized this before, but apparently it's pretty easy to do it. And maybe that's what dashboard mode is doing. Ashra says, do you want to use the user reserve bindings because Control-C letter is reserved for the user? Where am I using that? Whoops, what just happened? Whoa. What the hell? Getting myself into trouble here. Hey, Matthew. Control-C F. Let me check. Do I not have, yeah, I don't have rip grep set up here the same way I expect it to be. Let's see, consult, rip grep, Control-C, C. I'm not seeing it. Alejandro says you could also customize a scratch buffer. Yes, that's true. No worries, Ashraz. Okay, so that's okay for now, I think. Seth says Emacs is always trouble. Yeah, that's true. You press the wrong button and then you're off in the weeds. Japer says that was in your embark thingy that you moved to your config. Okay. Yeah, for sure. All right, so what else should I do for now? I mean, some of the stuff we can start checking in. Let's look at VC mode, just out of curiosity. Diff. Project VC dir. Okay, that's the one we want. Yeah, this UI is just not very good. Oniket says fancy startup text. We saw that in the GUI config stream. Did we? I don't remember it. No love for describe key map. Control H capital K. Is that okay? Is it there already? Whoa. What is that noise? Sorry, if you hear a buzzing noise, I have no idea what that is. And then my daughter's yelling at it, whatever it was. Okay, so let's see. Control H, Control, what was it? Control H, Control capital K. Come on. Find documentation for key. It's gonna break my pull request to tweak the readme. Well, you know what? We can go merge yours first. Did I mute the music again? What happened? There it is. Okay. Shabam says, does adding git gutter in UI make sense? It makes sense somewhere. That's a great question because it's pretty useful. Edda says, do you plan on using general? No. I don't plan on using general in the configuration modules, but there's nothing stopping someone from pulling it in themselves. Ashra says, the buzzing noise is a Vim user hammering on the keyboard trying to escape their editor. That sounds about right. Tomas says, any opinion about winter mode? Winter mode is good. I found the Control-X left-right bindings are helpful to get rid of help windows, which are not focused by default. Yeah, winter mode's built in, right? So should there be a separate module for window management? Oh, Gil says, what mode is responsible for abbreviating the dir in the mode line? That's Doom mode line, so that's a functionality that it provides. I think that's something in Emacs too, though. I forgot what it's called. Forward, something. What was it called? No, that was one of the values. I don't remember what the name of the variable was, but there is a way to do that. Tomas says, there's a burner phone in your desk on vibrate mode and the mafia is calling you. Yeah, if there's a Greek mafia, maybe. Let's see. All right, so winter mode and wind move are really good. Yeah. Is wind move also built in? Wind move. Yeah, okay. Wind move got built in, or at least expanded as of 27 or 28, I think. All right, so... Man, I don't know if my father-in-law is drilling something outside, but that's really annoying. Here we go. Rational window. Should it be Windows? Because then we're going to get in dangerous territory talking about Windows. Well, we're just going to call it rational Windows. How about that? So we will set up winter mode. Winter mode 1. And then when we do a window split, we should be able to do winter undo. Okay. Now, the question is, should we get a little bit more, what would you call it? Add some conventions for certain things, because having a window management module kind of begs for a key map for window management, like Control-C, Control-W or something. I don't know if that's bad practice, or Control-C-W at least. I didn't know that. David says, perhaps add Emacs ELIS demos to the helpful config, add short examples to function docs. I didn't know that. Actually, that's a great idea. Huh. Okay, so I forgot the way to set up a key map. Let's see, key map. I think there is a make key map. Construct and return a new key map of the form blah. Is that the right way to do that? Def var rational windows key map. Make key map. Is that cool? All right. And then also I think we can do global set key. Keyboard Control-C W. And then pass in the rational Windows key map. Okay, Control-C, W. Wrong type argument, Command P. So make key map, what does it take? String. And what's the string? Optional string returns a menu name for the key map, okay. Paul says, do you know how to change DRED's program, or does your DRED video touch on that? I think I might touch on that in the video. We do need to have some DRED config in here as well. So Control-HV, DRED LS. There is something for that, and I can't remember which command or which variable it is. There is something for that for sure. Define prefix command instead of def var. Thank you. Define prefix command. Run command as a prefix command. Map var name. Define command as a prefix command. A command should be a symbol. New sparse key map is stored. So define prefix command rational Windows key map. If I do that by itself, it doesn't like it. Oh, it wants to be an actual symbol? Fine. Oops. Can I do this? All right, so Control-C, W. Cool, that works. All right. So now with the key map, define key rational Windows key map. That should work, right? Yeah. Then the question becomes, do you use Vim style bindings or do you use Emacs style bindings? SM says, are you redoing a config you've made or tweaking one here? I'm building a new base Emacs configuration, basically. Okay, so KBD. For this, let's say N. Ashra says, this stream somewhat reminds me of Torvald's initial Linux email. Hey y'all, just sharing a small starter configuration base. Won't be something big like Doom or SpaceMax. This won't be something big like Doom or SpaceMax. Shouldn't be. I mean, the whole point is just sort of, you know, start with. Let's see. Does that work? Wrong number of arguments. I don't provide a binding. So how about this? I'm going to start with U and use winner undo. Okay. So now if I split the window and then use Control CWU, then it does undo. Great. That's what I expect. All right, so that's a good little starting point. I don't know. The spacing feels weird because there's nothing in this file, but famous last words. Yeah, well, the problem is I have no time to maintain this thing or help merge PR, so I'm going to need all of your help to make this project work. Winner, wind move, up, down, left, right. So wind move down, is that right? Okay, wind move down. We'll bind that really quickly, and then I'll split this and say Control CWN. Yeah, it goes down. Control CW. Yeah, all right. Now, I would prefer to have evil style bindings, and that could be a variable potentially that could be used to configure. Def var rational windows evil style. Nil by default. Maybe it's a def custom. I also need to delete that line too. Win T. Window movement bindings will be evil style. Japer says, what about doing a check if you loaded the evil module or if evil is loaded and decide on key bindings based on that? I thought about that, but I feel like it's not enough to be sure that the user wants that. So maybe it's better to just make it explicitly opt-in. Ashra says, now you use reserved letter. Control CW is reserved for the user. Yeah, okay. So we'll change that. Let's just do this instead. Control C, like that. Now, Control W. Is Control W used by default? It's used by evil mode. So evil has its own set of nice bindings for this. And I don't want to stomp on that. I guess if you had evil, you probably don't need these particular bindings. But, we'll do it anyway. What about using meta space or meta M as the leader key? Well, we don't really have a concept of leader key in this config. I would prefer to use Control C because Control C is sort of the default leader key in Emacs. Control XW. Ah, that's true. Nothing there. Is that bad practice though? I don't know. Yeah, I might do something somewhere. I don't want to step on that. So N and P, we could use this to be up, left and right. So B is before, and F is backward and F is forward. Yeah, it doesn't really match up though, does it, with the mental model? So wind move left, wind move right. There's probably a better way to define this key map that's not so ugly like what I'm doing right now. So we'll just eval region these. You know, add with eval after load and add a hook to evil mode. That way your style would be in sync with the evil's current state. Yeah, that's definitely possible. Definitely things people could contribute if they wanted to. So if I do some window splits, then I could use Control CWN, Control CWF. Is that right? Control CWF. Undefined. Oh, I screwed that up. F. Control CWF. Okay. A little bit of a mouthful. Yeah, if you don't want to step where you shouldn't, Control CW is probably fine. Yeah, I mean, I guess the best approach would be to let the user define what the prefix is for that. Okay, I think that's right. def custom rational Windows prefix key. And then this could just be Control C, Control W by default. Configure the, then it could be anything. So then here we could use that variable instead, I think. Probably should have eval'd that. Rational Windows prefix key. Need to finish off that statement or expression, then run this. Okay, cool. Yeah, Matthew says projectile does that where you have a def custom to overwrite the prefix. Yeah, that's basically where I'm taking inspiration from at this moment. In that case, I would probably use Control-C-W as the default because having the whole control for all those keys is a little bit of a pain, I think, in my opinion. But my opinion can be changed. All right. That's pretty good as a starting point. I think we should leave all variables at the top of the file so that you can easily find them. And we have winter mode on. Okay, so let me add that to the README. Oh, Control H is not working. There it goes. Weird. Huh. When you type something, Control H doesn't delete it until you get back to the actual directory. That's weird. I wouldn't have expected that. Come on now, readme.org. Uh-oh. All right, there we go. Configuring org also, that's something that I haven't done yet that would be nice. Have a rational org configuration to make it look a little bit nicer. Let's see, let's add. Let's see, module/rational-windows.el. Rational Windows. Window management. Configuration. Okay. And then here we can add this to the sort of the not example, but the suggested config, I guess you could say. Rational Windows. And for this, we could just use what we made before. But, you know, I guess breaking changes are a thing we want to avoid, right? We don't want to break people every time we make a change to the configuration, so I don't know if I should even advocate for using that variable yet. That's the danger of making something like this, is that you don't want to break people with updates. So you need to be thinking a lot about how you configure things before you do it, because any changes are going to be problematic. Bill says, given you're calling this rational Emacs, I think you have to include UML mode. Yeah, another IBM reference, I think. All right. A Cosmic Joke says, I thought Control-C is supposed to be for the major mode bindings. How do you know some random major mode won't override Control-C, Control-W? Well, you don't know that at all with any package that you're going to use in Emacs. Okay. So, let me see if I can get some of this stuff checked in. We're going to use actual Magic for this because I don't feel like having to deal with that. With, There's a little bit of cruft in here. We have eShell. Let's add some things to git ignore too. eShell. What is... Come on. What is projects? Okay, so apparently that needs to be added into git ignore. Projects. Hello. There you go. All right, so we can add... Ooh. How did I change that? Okay. Okay, so add rational Windows module. Update git ignore. And then... Oh, why do I have an extra line here? That's ugly. Do that. And then we'll see. We added helpful here, and we removed use key. Oops. Remove which key. Add helpful package. Okay, and let's see. Let me go. Ashra says project.el is included in Emacs 28, right? Yes. Does it? Isn't it in 27 also? It's just better in 28. Okay, let me go to the repo real quick, because I think that there may already be a PR. Okay, so we got one from Jafer here. Add rational use package to list. Yes. Okay. Let me take a look at that really quick. Oof. Why is this scrolling so weird? Rational use package configuration, if you would prefer it over straight.el. Okay, so we'll just merge that. Thank you, Jafer. This is something we might do on streams also, where we just like take a look at PRs and maybe merge them or talk about them. I don't know. It's just another thing we could possibly do on streams to make it a little bit more interesting. All right, I'm going to merge that. And now I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to rebase on top of it. And we got a little conflict here, which is fine. Wait, what? Okay, fine. Why are the markers not showing up in the file? Oh, there they are, finally. All right, let's do this. We'll make a link to that one. Modules, rational use package.el. I need to make sure that these actually work, these links that I'm adding. Okay. So then I should probably mention these also. Modules that we will be adding in the future. Whoops, this is a rebase. I better not do that. Let me see. Is this fine? I'm gonna cause myself trouble here. Ashra says you need to add forge and merge PRs from within Emacs. Yeah. And also, don't those org links need a file prefix? They probably do. We're gonna find out in a moment. Okay, I probably just screwed up my merge, but whatever. RR. Ah, it's fine. Okay. So now, I'll push that to origin master. Make sure that it showed up. Tomas says, my colleague is using Forge and it looks quite all right. Yeah, Forge is not bad. If you have a large repo with a lot of issues, it takes a long time to sync, but other than that. Okay, so the changes that we just did are now pushed to the repo in case that anybody wants to try them out. So, yeah, we got about 5 minutes left in the stream. So I want to remind people that this is meant to be a community project for everybody to make contributions to. I do want to try to start using this as my base configuration. Part of my goal for my config this year is to basically just rip out everything in my config, try to make it more modular, which pulling things in like rational Emacs could help with that. And then put more of what I do in my configuration into a place where other people can use it. So this is sort of like the core project for at least the Emacs side of my configuration that I want to do that with. And I'm really interested to see what other people want to add to this as well, if you want to try to use it as the base for your own config. Now, you don't have to use this if you watch this channel and you sort of like what videos I'm making. I mean, you should use, excuse me, you should use this if you actually have a reason to use it, or if you just are curious and you want to try it, or maybe you want to contribute to it. But otherwise, I mean, just do what you want to do. You know, use Doom, use your own vanilla config if you want to. But that's what we're going to try to do here, at least. That's pretty much it, I think. Anything else to mention on this? So I'm pretty busy at the moment with all the stuff that I'm doing at the same time. So it's going to be difficult for me to get to PRs constantly on this. So if you send PRs and you don't hear from me, just ping me or send me a message somewhere. But I might try to get some of my my usual collaborators to help me review and merge PRs here as well. So if you are one of those people and you're interested in helping me with this, please feel free to let me know. Bill says I'll probably just steal ideas from it. Yeah, that's one of the desired outcomes, is for people to take a look at the configuration files and just take ideas or maybe just snippets of config from it. So this could be an example of a good, you know, modern quote unquote Emacs configuration that you get inspiration from without actually using, if you want to. Shabam says, you didn't link the repo in the description. Yeah, I'll do that. That's a good point. All right, let me see if I missed anything in the chat. Let's check those links and see if GitHub deals with it well. Yeah, I think that GitHub deals with it, but maybe normal org files don't deal with it well, so we'll have to see about that. Okay, so this week, I will actually get a System Crafters video out. I've been too consumed with other things this week to... Sorry, did I say this week? Next week, I'll get an Emacs System Crafters video out. As you can see, my brain is totally frazzled. I've been working a little bit too hard, so I will get a video out to continue the new Emacs from Scratch series. It's a toss-up right now between a video on good default configuration settings for Emacs or potentially talking about UI customization. Not sure which one is the better video to do. I've already done a lot of talking about UI customization, so maybe that's not so interesting, but let's see. Oh, make a rational shell.el in the to-dos. Yes, that's a good idea. We do need that for sure. Rational shell. A starter configuration for eShell and maybe term mode or a vterm. Yeah, vterm is better. I mean, obviously, we just need to use vterm. Now that's there. Is filing issue for to-dos good idea? Yes. If you have thoughts or ideas, please feel free to file issues. That's another good way to contribute, is just file issues. Rational terminal or both. Yeah, shell is fine, but maybe shell is vague. Another thing is open to discussion. Everything is open to discussion. I'm sort of, you know, I want to hear people's feedback and ideas on this. So that's sort of the whole name of the game. So thanks for watching this stream of me just hacking around on Emacs Lisp. If you liked watching this sort of, you know, building this configuration or talking about sort of, you know, stuff in configs, let me know in the comments or let me know in the places you can find me, because I would like to do more of this. I just want to know that people are interested in it before I start spending more time on streams doing it. Because to be honest, as far as conversation topics are concerned, I've run through many of them that I have, so it would be cool to have some config coding on streams. That would be nice. And also maybe doing some conversations with people, which, you know, the stream with Prot is one of the things I need to do soon. That will be something we'll do. And then maybe some other people as well. So we'll have to look into that. So thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all have a great weekend. And until next time, happy hacking. We'll see you.